I'm with Montek Singh Ahluwalia, the former Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission during the Manmohan Singh years. The Planning Commission is, of course, now called the Niti Aayog since Prime Minister Modi took power in 2014. Mr. Ahluwalia was born in Rawalpindi. After partition, moved to Sikandrabad, studied in Delhi and at Oxford University, where he was also president of the Oxford Students' Union. As a civil servant, he has been finance secretary, commerce secretary, secretary to the Department of Economic Affairs, as well as special secretary to the Prime Minister. And during the 1991 economic reforms that was then led by then Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao, then Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, Mr. Ahluwalia played a key role in the transformation of the Indian economy. Here in Punjab, he led in 2020 the group of experts that was set up by then Chief Minister Capt Amarinder Singh to revitalise or to revamp the Punjab economy. I'm Jyoti Malhotra with the Tribune, and this is the Tribune Newsroom, multimedia property of the Tribune. We are now not just in print, but also on digital and on video. Mr. Ahluwalia, welcome to the Tribune.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
My first question to you is about the economy, the state of India's economy today. Lots of things, lots of people saying a lot of things about the economy. Now, with this war between the US and Iran, that's hopefully and finally come to an end. We hope that the price of oil will come down and therefore the cascading effect on a lot of other things. But your first thoughts and your first remarks on how do you see the economy is doing?
Well, as you said, the short-term concern was the West Asia crisis, and that could have been really bad. I mean, it was bad, but it could have been really bad. And people were talking about oil prices going to 120, 130. Now they've settled down below 90.
It's about 85 to 90.
Yeah, so that gives you a sense of the range. I do think that although we don't really have conclusion in print on the agreement, but let's hope that it will prevail. And clearly, both the US and Iran seem to want normalcy.
Yeah.
There'll be some jockeying around. So let's assume normalcy will come. It doesn't mean that there's going to be no problem. Because my guess is that oil prices will not immediately go down to what they were earlier, for the simple reason there's been a lot of supply possibilities that have been damaged, which will take time to get back to normal. And more importantly, a huge amount of dipping into strategic reserves has taken place. Large reduction of reserves. And given the uncertainty about the world economy, people will want to build up these reserves very quickly as soon as normalcy comes. And which means that in terms of scarcity of supply, it will still be there. More than that, I mean, some countries, maybe us also, would want to build up more than we had earlier because nobody quite understood how vulnerable the global economy would be. So I think we're going to have, the oil price will not come down to normal for this year. Maybe towards the end it might.
Okay.
Which means that it won't be as bad as was thought. But I think it'll still be a problem for two reasons. First, for many years, we've been able to maintain a current account deficit because we had a capital account surplus, so investments and portfolio, etc.
Right.
Now, for a variety of reasons, this capital account surplus has more or less disappeared in the last 2 years. Whether it'll come back or not, we have to see. Maybe with the return of normalcy.
In the last 2 years, so prior to the Iran-US conflict?
Yes, it began coming down even before. And if you look at the state of the current account surplus during 25-26, of which only the last few months, 2 months, were affected by the Iran crisis, the capital account surplus is much lower than it used to be.
So why is that?
Well, I think there are multiple explanations. I mean, some people say that, look, a lot of the guys who came in made a lot of money and they've, as it were, cashed in on their gains and moved out.
Right.
We should not actually mind that. I mean, I think you want to create an impression in people's minds that India is a safe place to come in. And as and when you think the world economy is in a bit of a tizzy and you want to take your money out, you'll be allowed to. That is absolutely crucial.
So it's okay when people say that $20 billion have have left the country in the first quarter of this year. You don't think that's a problem?
I don't. Well, no, it's a signal, and therefore you can see already the finance minister is making very positive noises about we must do everything to bring capital in.
Right.
Now, I mean, those signals are good. They reflect the fact that you can't take things for granted. I mean, there was a feeling of some people saying, where else will they go? We're the only emerging market. That's not true. So I think it is a problem. We'll be able to manage it. What the RBI and the finance ministry together have now done allows you to bring in short-term flows. But you don't want to be managing your balance of payments on short-term flows. They will prevent sharp depreciations further in the rupee. Mm-hmm. But the longer term, if you're going to keep running a current account deficit, and we should, I mean, we have a lot of investment to do. We're not a capital surplus country. We need to finance that with capital inflows. So one set of problems is, yes, we will manage the current account deficit this year. I think we will now. But what about next year?
Right.
If the economy starts to recover and there's bigger current account deficit, will the capital account long-term flows become available, or will you still be scrounging around for emergency help? You really need to bring those flows back. So you need to focus on what's going to be our strategy for the current account deficit for the next year, 2 years or so.
Okay.
But apart from that, there's a deeper problem. And the deeper problem is that, the target we've set, which is a good target in my view, is the Viksit Bharat by 2047 or so.
Right.
So I think what you need to ask yourself is, how are we doing compared to that target?
And how do you think we're doing?
One view would be we're doing fine because we're the fastest growing emerging market, which we still will be. But truth of the matter is, if you want to achieve that target, and I think everybody does, then you need about 8+ % real growth.
But you're getting about 6%.
Yeah, but you're getting 6%, and maybe you'll have problems if the world economy doesn't recover. It's not clear that a 6 can go to 8% very easily. And everybody agrees, even the government's view is that we can do it if we can do reforms. I'm not aware of any government document which says, don't worry, everything is fine, we're on 6% and therefore we'll reach Viksit Bharat. No. Mm-hmm. So the idea is we will need to do that 8%. So the question you have to ask, two questions. One, is 8% the short-term target, next 5-7 years? I don't think so. Because, if you want to achieve 8+% for the next 20 years, during which we will move to the bottom of what I call the high-income countries, we have to plan for a slowdown to take place. Because during this period, just as China slowed down, we will also slow down. Mm-hmm. So if you want to average 8%, you need to be targeting 9% now, so that in the next remaining 10 years, after the next 10, you can slow down.
So do you see the government targeting 9%?
Well, they've not used a number, but they've said 8% for 20 years. What I would say is, in order to address the question, are you on target, you should define what is the short-term target for the first 10 years. And my guess would be that will be significantly more than 8%.
So let me just, give you some figures, and this is all in the public domain. The rupee crossed 100 to the dollar a few days ago. It's back now to 95, of course. While retail inflation is down and therefore supposedly under control, wholesale inflation has crossed 9%. Yep. The price of fuel, we all know, because of the Iran-US conflict, went up by 7.5 rupees in the last month or so. The trade deficit has gone up to 120 billion compared to 95 billion last year. And the rupee has been described as Asia's worst performing currency in 2025.
Yep. Well, first point, inflation, prices, yes. That's the consequence of the hit that we've had. I don't think anyone should think that because of this hit, there are going to be no costs. Right. These are the costs.
Yeah.
As far as the rupee is concerned, actually, for too long, it was held at a nominally stable rate. Whereas Indian inflation was always higher than international inflation. Mm-hmm. Now, the usual economist kind of view, and getting the exchange rate right is very complex. You need about 1 hour discussion of that. But broad fact is, most people would have said you should try to stabilize the real effective exchange rate unless you feel there's a huge positive shock. I mean, for example, if we suddenly discover oil and it looks as if we're going to have a current account surplus, then certainly the rupee should appreciate. But short of that, the rupee should not, in my view, should not have appreciated in real terms.
So you don't think the Reserve Bank of India should protect the rupee?
No, I'm not saying that. As a matter of fact, what I'm saying is they were too concerned to keep the rupee at a nominally stable level of whatever, 80
And they should
something.
not be too concerned?
They should have allowed more relevant market forces and longer term strategy to work. But right now, it's very clear. Look, for the last 5 years, our export performance has been poor. I mean, our share of exports in world markets has gone down. Exports are not growing the way they used to. So we have to note that, look, on exports, we're doing badly. If you're doing badly on exports, one of the things people ask is, what are you doing on the exchange rate?
Right.
So therefore, to my mind, the depreciation that has happened will hurt some people. I mean, those who are importing, those who are planning holidays abroad, those who are paying for foreign education for their children, they'll be hurt. But long term, if we have a balance of payments problem, allowing the rupee to depreciate was not a bad idea. I mean, I think now what has happened, the governor has said he thinks it's now gone a bit over depreciated. That's the right thing to manage the situation so that people also begin to say, "Bhai, ab kafi ho gaya."
Okay, I'm going to ask another question and then I'm going to open it up to the floor. Your good friend and noted economist Surjit Bhalla has accused what he calls the deep state. It's a lovely word which usually, geopolitical analysts use, but he says that there is a deep state in the government of India that is preventing an economic reform, or a second economic reform, if you like, to take place, which sort of employs this crisis and converts it into an opportunity. And Mohandas Pai, former Infosys, subsequently, he's
also
well, I'm happy to hear that, has said that there is a tax terrorism that's taking place in the country, and he's accused people in Delhi and in Bangalore of not allowing sort of market forces as well as sort of, regional potential to emerge. Would you agree with both?
I think they're both pointing to a very genuine problem. I have said elsewhere that, I don't agree with Surjit's use of the phrase deep state.
No, why not?
Deep state relates to the world of spies and the world of, shadow activities. What he means by the deep state is he thinks there's such an entrenched bureaucracy that in his view, even the political leadership doesn't really know how bad the bureaucracy is. And I think this is a very profound statement, and it's correct, because I think people fail to realize that basically we have a bureaucracy that is very bound to process. And if you follow the process, even if the end result is a disaster, you will not be accused of anything. If you violate the process a little and the end result is fantastic, you could still be held vulnerable. Now, in that situation, you will not get sensible economic decisions being made, because the risk involved in taking a good decision is very, very high, and the risk involved in a bad decision where process is followed is zero.
Who is preventing you from taking this good decision? Is it the bureaucracy?
When you say I mean, I'm fortunately neither on the bureaucracy
but
side.
you were a civil servant.
Yes,
you spent many years in the bureaucracy. So is it the bureaucracy which is the deep state and therefore preventing the government or the political leadership from taking the tough decisions?
This is a very critical question, so let me stick my neck out.
Okay.
I mean, it's not in some senses neither the bureaucracy nor the government. It's the failure to realize that if you're going to run a complex system, you have to spend about 20 times more time in the details of the regulations you prescribe and build in a system where these corrective steps can be taken very quickly. Now, let me give you a positive account on this. Recently, in the drive to indigenize production of anything, 2 years ago, I think there was something that said within X months, import of laptops will be stopped.
Right.
Okay. Now, I think Mohandas Pai was one of the people who took the initiative to bring this to the notice of government. that, look, this is a crazy step. And I would say, to the credit of those involved, this was reversed in one day.
Yeah.
Okay. My feeling is that they are not aware that hundreds of such decisions are being taken, all in the name of the government. And therefore, to that extent, the government is ill served. We don't have a system where mistakes are quickly corrected.
So the government doesn't really know what the bureaucracy is doing in the name of the government on the business or the economic or the financial side of things.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to see where's the catch in your question.
No, there's no catch.
When you say the government, if you mean
The political
government as a
leadership
totality.
doesn't. No, the political leadership doesn't know that the bureaucracy in its name is preventing that transformation.
I think the short answer is yes. Let me go back to 1991.
Yeah.
In those days, things were a lot easier because there we were not trying to create a new system which had to be worked flexibly. We were just getting rid of some totally idiotic rules and just abolishing them.
Okay, let me open this up. Nareshji is the editor of the Dainik Tribune.
Mr. Ahluwalia, how do you assess India's progress towards developed economy by 2047, जिसका बहुत प्रचार प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी करते हैं और बड़े दावे करते हैं, इसके बारे में आपका प्रिसाइजली क्या कहना है?
नहीं, मैंने पहले कहा था कि जहाँ तक आप कह रहे हैं, मेरा व्यू क्या है इस लक्ष्य पे कि हम बाय 2047 जो कहते हैं हाई इनकम इकोनॉमी $14,000 per capita or something, I think it's a very good objective, but it's going to take a lot of work. Now, अगर आप कहें भाई कर सकते हैं कि नहीं, काफ़ी टाइम है, और अगर हम जो रिफॉर्म्स, सब लोग कह रहे हैं कि रिफॉर्म्स की ज़रूरत है, प्रधानमंत्री खुद कह रहे हैं कि रिफॉर्म, परफॉर्म, ट्रांसफॉर्म, the slogans are all there. The question really is, we should, in my view, we should be able to list what are the things that we are now doing, and are they being done in the critical areas. It's not even enough to identify critical area. For example, ease of doing business. Okay, wonderful. I mean, in my report 2020 mein to Amarinder ji, I had also said that, look, you are heavy with small scale industries, but you're making life very difficult for them. Now, some things have been done, and that one should note. But in my view, by the time the next budget is presented, they should be able to present a list, a documented list. These are the things that have been done. Now, remember, half the things that have to be done by the central government. The other half have to be done by state governments. I don't see any harm if the central government were to put forward a sort of documentation of what they have achieved and invite state governments, ke bhai tum bhi batao. See, I think very often, for example, people mistake form for substance. I mean, for example, when a businessman says, bhai, bada problem hai going to 20 different people, hame a single window de do. It's a wonderful phrase and everybody is in favor of it. But let me put it this way, if you have a single window in which you put in your application, and then that application is treated by several different windows, nothing is gained, except you don't have to go to 20 offices, they'll do it themselves. That means they'll take longer.
Right.
Because once you handed in the application, you have no idea where it's gone. So I personally feel that there has to be somebody who's aware of what a time and motion study is, should be able to say, but this was the process, and this is how it's been changed, and then let's see how it works.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਸਰ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
ਸਰ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੱਸੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? ਐਡਵਾਈਜ਼ਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਐਡਵਾਈਜ਼ਰਸ ਨੇ, ਇਹ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣਦੀ ਹੈ, ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ?
ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਐਡਵਾਈਜ਼ਰ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ ਐਡਵਾਈਸ ਦੇਣਾ, ਉਸਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਪਾਵਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰੇ। ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਐਡਵਾਈਸ ਕੀ ਦੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
ਨਹੀਂ, ਬਟ ਇੱਕ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਾਜ਼ਾ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ ਨੇ ਸਾਰੇ। Government listens and implement those advices.
I was economic advisor until 1984.
Okay.
Then 1985, I went to the Prime Minister's office. Even when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister, in the beginning of 85, I made some suggestions and managed to persuade people, and a few things got done. But frankly, until 1991, they didn't get done. Now, by then, I had ceased to be economic advisor. But the point is, I don't know what the economic advisors are advising. I know what the economic advisors are telling you. But I believe it should be possible to know for the public, okay, bhai, what advice did you get and what advice what have you implemented?
I'm Sanjeev Singh Baryana. I'm with the Punjab Bureau. So I'd like to ask you that things seem to have settled down on the Iran-US front after the Hormuz thing, and that the gases will come down. And India has done pretty decently to manage the oil prices with 4 hikes at about 7.25. But we know very well that it's going to take time. You yourself pointed out it's going to take time before the things become normal. So in the short run, do we see the impact coming more to the consumers? Will they be forced to pay more? Is there any economic front?
Both a very good and a very difficult question. Short answer, without doubt there will be an impact. But whether the impact will be through prices or whether the government will take the impact of the prices on itself and reduce its own expenditures to keep the fiscal deficit, in that model, you will have no further impact on the price front, but there won't be certain expenditures. Now, what will those not be? What is going to be cut? We don't know. If all they do is just delay payment of salaries, etc., for teachers, you will see a deterioration in the school system.
Well, the Prime Minister has already said that the people should tighten their belts, metaphorically, of course. Don't go abroad, don't buy gold.
No, don't go abroad, I think, because there are lots of wonderful things to do in India. And I'm encouraging my kids to take holidays at home.
Right.
But certainly don't buy gold. I mean, gold, Keynes called it a barbaric relic. And I share Keynes' view. No economist dares disagree with Keynes, even these days, right? Tightening your belt, of course, but question is, how are belts tightened? One way that belts are tightened is that you say that by prices have gone up, hamare jo companies hai, they're taking a loss. They cannot take a loss. We raise the prices. Okay. If you raise the prices, you will get a hit straight away. And that hit will be on your budget. And there'll be less money left. And the hit will be whatever you don't do. Maybe your savings you'll reduce. Maybe you won't go for holidays, even in India. Maybe depending on your income level. I mean, the very rich, it will only affect their saving. They will not alter their consumption pattern. But a middle class person who has children going to schools, private schools, somewhere there'll be a squeeze. Okay. Another view could be the government could say, okay, this is a sudden shock, and let us not raise prices too much, so we won't raise the oil prices. That means that the government either has to reduce excise or the companies will take a hit. You could take the view that the companies have made enough profit, so there's no harm if they make a loss another 3-4 months. That's arguable. But then the issue is, what investments would these fellows have done if their money hadn't gone down? And if the government doesn't have the money, what will it cut? And if it doesn't want to cut, will it finance it through higher taxes elsewhere? So whichever thing happens, there will be a hit. So because the hit is on the country. So somebody in the country will take a hit, no question.
Sir, in 1991, when you steered the country's first economic reforms, you used to engage with the opposition parties on a daily basis to bring them on board and explain what the government is going to do and come on board, whatever. Do you think in present system it's missing and it's essential to create consensus and bring the opposition on board, which is not being done in the present system?
Well, I know about 1991, and these things are also, they depend on the state of politics and they depend on personalities, okay? It's certainly true that as far as Dr. Manmohan Singh is concerned, he used to constantly reach out to the opposition, BJP, they understand what we're doing. Very often they would say, yeah, we understand. Sometimes they would say, we'll support you and not support him. And at one time, he even said that, to Vajpayee ji that, after saying you understand, but you make all these comments. And Vajpayee told him, if you're in politics, you must have a thick skin. So, the 91 government was in a very different position. It was a coalition government. It didn't have the strength that the present government does. Now, in a democracy, that's what a majority means. If you have a majority, you do less of this consultation, etc. But I think the real problem is not what you do instantly. In my view, if you want to get to Viksit Bharat, you have to do so many things on which there's no consensus even within the party.
Sir, I'm Mohit Khanna. I'm with Punjab Bureau. Sir, how can we let you escape without answering about agriculture, sir? Sir, and what is the sir? There's a agriculture marketing system in Punjab, sir, since MSP being the core of it, sir. And what are your views, especially about the three repealed farm laws, sir?
My view on the substance of those three farm laws, I have said earlier, they were correct. It's a different matter that they were not handled with enough discussion. In fact, what happened was that as you know, it was a mistake to try and rush them through as an ordinance. Had the government taken the view, there's a very sensitive issue. We are circulating a discussion paper. Maybe ask the Niti Aayog or whatever it is to have a discussion with farmer interests, both in Punjab and UP and Haryana and so on, and in the South, and then come up with a considered view. I think we would have been better off. But of course, what happens with politics is that when it gets frozen, God knows whether it will ever come unfrozen.
Sir, I'm Rajmeet. During Capt Amarinder's time, you had advocated ending the free power to the medium and the large farmers.
Sorry,
Ending the free power.
Ending free
Free power to
power,
subsidy
yeah.
to the large and the medium farmer. That still continues and it's draining the economy.
No, I agree it continues, and it's. I think Punjab has actually infected the rest of the country also, because it began in Punjab and then slowly other fellows are doing it. I would have the same
blame
view.
us for the good ideas.
I would have the same view on power also. I mean, let's do a study and what is the benefit that goes from this, and convert it into a cash transfer and delink it from the price.
So I'm Bhartesh. I'm from Haryana Bureau. I want to ask about the inequality in India.
Inequality.
Inequality. It's one of the highest in the world, and as per the World Inequality Report, top 1% hold 40% of the wealth. So, what's your recommendation on it? And has the crony capitalism contributed to it?
And I will add to that, it was the economic reform of 1991, of which you were a key player, that unleashed the animal spirits, that Dr. Manmohan Singh, a phrase that he was pretty fond of, which had also contributed to the situation today.
No, the last I strongly disagree with.
Okay.
Because the essence of animal spirits is that you must free the animals subject to guardrails. I mean, you don't just free the animals. And therefore, if you had proper guardrails, crony capitalism would not exist. I mean, let me give you, it's a very complicated question which raises other things, but on crony capitalism, let me just make a simple point. The important thing is that if you subject crony capitalism to, first of all, competitive markets, it won't be that crony. I mean, today, for example, you have very high duties on steel, you have very high duties on aluminum, you have very high duties on petrochemicals and plastics. These are the items that are used by the small scale sector. They're produced by a handful of guys, okay? They always have to be produced by a handful of guys because this can't be produced by a small number of people. But if you were to subject these to low duties, then immediately the sort of so-called cronyism would disappear. Look, the rupee has depreciated about 12% in the last year or so. How about cutting the duties on these products by 10%? I mean, they're probably 15 at the moment, cut it down to 5%. Your small scale sector will do a jai card saying, wonderful. Because the only way to discipline large capitalists in your country is to subject them to competition from capitalists outside. And that would take care of a lot of cronyism. Now, then you have other kinds of cronyism, that is infrastructure. I mean, infrastructure is not subject to competition in the same way. because one doesn't expect to be able to go from either airport 1 or airport 2 or airport 3. Everybody has one airport that is a natural airport, but then that's subject to regulatory restrictions of various kinds.
So there's nothing wrong with crony capitalism, you're saying?
No, there is something wrong there's nothing wrong with capitalism. The definition of crony capitalism is where political power is being used to get unfair benefits. And that is always wrong. But in my view, when you have the private sector in a regulatory environment, in a infrastructure environment, an appropriate regulatory control will prevent cronyism.
But in your government, or when you were in government, and as well as when you were deputy chairman of the Planning Commission, you must have had, and there must have been a lot of examples of crony capitalists who were leveraging their influence inside government to get their way in an unfair way.
Look, in all governments...
So how did you deal with that?
Let me not claim that we dealt with it perfectly, but in the very limited case of infrastructure, we were very clear that we must have large Indian companies. You know, when the reforms began, in the case of, say, road building, the restriction were that you must bid out 5 kilometers at a stretch for each road, because everybody wanted to have a bit of the cut. So we made the point that, look, this is ridiculous. You cannot have bid out 5 kilometers in order to satisfy different contractors. Let Indian contractors become bigger. So we raised it to 50 kilometers at a stretch. Then the issue was, what is going to be the qualifying requirement? Because nobody had built 50 kilometers at a stretch. So we handled that also. So it takes time, but if you do it, you end up with a reasonably decent ability to have competition in big projects.
So to Bhartesh's question on the relationship between inequality and crony capitalism.
Now, I would accept the proposition that in the early stages of development, some inequality increase will take place. But I wouldn't say that the dominant thing is no inequality increase should take place, because let's look at it this way. If you're stuck in a low-level equilibrium and the economy is growing at 4%, and not much inequality is taking place, so the poor are growing at 3.5% and the rich are growing at 4.5%, you move to a situation where if you can make the economy grow at 6%, but the poor grow at 5% and the rich grow at 7%, then the poor are still doing better than they were earlier, but it's possible that inequality is increasing. Such increases in inequality are not, in my view, necessarily a bad thing. Over time, you can correct it by spreading the benefits of education and making things more competitive and so on. Now, one of the points you raised was wealth income inequality. You must remember there is no official data source for income inequality. The only large surveys we have are related to consumption. And it's an arguable question whether they measure it properly. We don't have any official survey on income. There's one done by a university, but it's not an official survey.
Okay.
My good friend Sujit Bhalla is in charge of a committee which has been set up by the government, which for the first time is going to produce an official estimate of income inequality. It's not going to be easy because, quite frankly, it's relatively easier for more or less an ordinary person to answer what his income is. He may want to hide it, but he roughly knows. But when you get very rich people, their accounts are so complicated, you really don't know what their income is. And anyway, the surveyors are not allowed to enter their house.
ਸਰ ਮੈਂ ਆਤਿਸ਼ ਗੁਪਤਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਟ੍ਰਿਬਿਊਨ ਤੋਂ ਸਰ ਗੱਲ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ ਡੇ ਬਾਏ ਡੇ ਇਨਕਰੀਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕਰਜ਼ੇ ਤੋਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ
ਮਤਲਬ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ
ਸਰਕਾਰ ਹੀ ਕੱਢੇਗੀ ਸਰ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਤੇ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ ਸਟੇਟ ਤੇ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਰਜ਼ਾ ਤਾਂ
this is Punjab. I agree with you that Punjab is a fiscally strained state because for a variety of reasons they have always relied on getting support from the centre, and for good reasons. It's a border state. It has been subjected to all kinds of pressures, security related, etc., which Punjab by itself cannot bear. But this the qarza that you're talking about is not just Punjab. Virtually all states are now in that position.
Including center.
Huh?
including central.
Punjab is the second
Yeah.
last in the list of states in terms of
Debt to GSDP.
debt to GSDP ratio.
Yeah, that is true.
So, how do you feel? What is Atish's question is? What is your advice to the state government as well as to the centre, so that Punjab is able to come out of this financial?
See, one of the
mess?
nice things of reaching retirement age is that you don't have to address impossible problems. There are a lot of very bright young people in government, both in the centre and in
What
Punjab.
do you think? What do you think the state government and the centre should do so that Punjab is able to get out of this mess?
You know, I tend to feel that...
Three things.
No, let me explain. If you believe in federalism, federalism does not mean that the centre will bail out every state. So either you come... ideally, the next finance commission, you're going to appoint one in another 2 years or so, it has to be done in a transparent way. Either you could say to the next finance commission, okay, bhai, all states have a debt problem, but these three are really bad. अब इनके लिए आप बताओ क्या करना चाहिए. Two answers will come. One, Punjab will say, we need more money without conditionality. Okay, that's the best from Punjab's point of view. They'll promptly spend that money on all kinds of other things. The debt will keep going up. The other is, some people will say you give them money only if they do certain things, which will actually bring their expenditure more under control. My guess would be that we are in such a bad situation that we have to do the latter. Merely giving money, if you give money just to Punjab, there are any number of other states. Every state whose debt to GDP ratio is worse than the half level will want it.
Sir, can the artificial intelligence affect India's labor market?
And there's a
It will affect India's labor market. Let's be very clear about it. It will affect it in two, three different ways. Number one, it will definitely kill a lot of what we have translated into a very effective support of software internationally, because that kind of software support is just going to be killed out by AI. Okay, that doesn't mean, by the way, that there won't be new types of AI jobs, but they'll be much more difficult and they'll be fewer in number. So that's one thing that will do. Second, unlike in the United States, where a number of jobs will be affected other than software, in our case, we haven't got to that stage yet. So in our case, those may not be such a big problem. But it is true that if these high quality jobs are not produced, we have, and they're not enough anyway, we have to increase the rate of growth of high quality employment in the non-software sector. There are lots of things that could happen, but that requires other economic reforms, better tourism, for example, but that requires a lot of urban infrastructure. My last point I must make, and that is that AI will be beneficial to us if it is absorbed in the company's processes to improve their productivity. Okay?
Monica,
That is just beginning.
come and
How
ask
it
a
will
question.
work, I don't know.
Sir, do you think that demonetization was good economics or good for the country? And if yes, why? And if no, do you think are we going to recover from it?
Well, no, my own feeling is, if you look at some of the work that's been done, I don't think demonetization, in my view, was all that great. I don't make a big fuss about it because it was very disruptive, but it was disruptive for 6 months. Now, if somebody lost their income during those 6 months, that's very painful. But I think we've recovered from demonetization.
Okay, I have a lot of questions from my colleagues all over the region. You've partially answered Aman Sood's question. He's from Patiala, he says, what's your take on the challenges of technology? And, you partially answered it from the AI question. He also wants to know about climate change and its impact on growing economies like India. Shivani Baku from Ludhiana has said, Sir, as per you, what are the 3 biggest challenges in our becoming a 5 trillion economy? So if you can take those 2. 3 points.
Yeah, okay. No, there's a lot of questions and I may kind of mix them up a bit. But on the 5 trillion economy, there are many things we have to do. I do believe that the ease of doing business issue is a very, very important one. and I think the government has highlighted it. But the most important thing is each state government should put forward its record. What has it done to improve the ease of doing business, and should publicize it and encourage a discussion amongst the people for whose benefit it is done, to see whether they think it's worked or not. It's very easy to say that you've done something that will improve the ease of doing business, but actually it doesn't. But to my mind, if small and medium enterprise, they are the ones who bear the burden. A lot of the regulatory constraints that we impose ultimately amount to low-level bribery, and big fellows know how to take care of that. Small fellows can't. And if you're a small businessman, have to deal with 20 different people, and all your energy is spent fixing those problems, you really can't think about your company. So I think if somebody in the government genuinely, state government, genuinely recognizes that this is indeed a problem and set up a mechanism to sort of indicate what changes they've made, and then to make sure that those changes are actually implemented, that would be a very good thing. That's point number one. Point number two is what I just mentioned. That is, it's not going to come without a very substantial addressing of the resource problems of government. And government has to win its elections by promising positive things that will achieve Viksit Bharat, and not by freebies. And if we remain stuck in the next election, and somewhere or the other there's going to be an election and another freebie is introduced, then I don't think there's much chance. Because let me put it this way, if India keeps slipping on the debt front, we will not look attractive for foreign investment. That's for sure. Because I think people elsewhere perceive that when this happens, essentially if you are dependent on foreign capital and you're going to bring in money, and we need that, then you have to have a fiscal environment which the guys who write about these things say, oh, India is doing well. Now, if on the other hand they judge that in all these parameters we are deteriorating, then I mean you just won't attract the investment you're talking about. That's one thing. I think the third and the biggest challenge is in the trade front. In 1991 reforms, one of the big things we did was get out of the old-fashioned 1970s import substitution approach. The world has now changed, and in a way, even the richer countries are no longer talking about being as open as they were talking about earlier. And certainly in strategic areas, they want to develop their own capacity. We will almost certainly be forced to do exactly that. If you want to be independent of foreign influence in sensitive areas of semiconductors and this and that, you'll have to spend a lot of energy and money in developing that capacity.
Yeah, hello sir, I'm Vikramdeep, I'm Deputy Editor. Just a quick question. You talked a lot about Viksit Bharat, and the government also keeps mentioning it practically on a daily basis. But what about the short-term goals? Why doesn't the government talk about what is going to be done by, say, 2028, 2030?
Well, I mentioned that. I mean, I think that a long-term goal is good, but let's agree on what is the goal, say, up to, what is our short-run target up to, say, 2030 or 2032? Because it's only with reference to short-term goals that we can decide whether we are on track. And my view is that if 8% is the average up to 2047, then the average up to 2035 would have to be 9%. So if you ask the question, how are we doing? You could have the following situation. We're growing at 6%, which is better than other countries, but the other countries are much ahead of us in terms of per capita income. We need to grow at 9%. So while we're doing better than others, we're not on target. That's the bottom line.
Any other questions at the back? Yeah.
Will history be kinder to Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Well, I think it's already kinder to him, but yes, I think it will be kinder to him.
Why do you say that?
When you say it's already kind to him, and I think whenever I talk to people, it's a question of what you're going to be kind about. It's a question of whether you judge his contribution in the 1991 reform as opposed to his contribution during the period when he was Prime Minister. I've written about this elsewhere. His contribution as Finance Minister was transformational. I mean, it put India on a totally different path. And a lot of what we've achieved now is because of that. As Prime Minister, he was in a very different position because as Finance Minister, he had the guarantee of Narasimha Rao that I'll take care of the politics, you do what you have to do. As Prime Minister, he had to deal with a pretty fractious kind of coalition, which earlier on also had the CPM. It certainly would have cramped his style quite a bit. And I also feel that by then we'd become a much more sophisticated country. And economic reforms were not a simple matter anymore. And I think, by the way, politics had changed, the role of social media, media in general, all these allegations of scams. I mean, if you look at those allegations, virtually all the cases when they're being resolved, there's no evidence of scam. So, in due course, my own feeling is that if you look at the period 2004 to 2014, the growth rate of the economy in that 10-year period was actually higher than in the next 10-year period. Now, of course, I'm not doing a tutu meme kind of thing because in the next 10-year period you had COVID and other things. Whether the economy did better in that period or in the next 10 years is a very sophisticated question. But there's no question that in his period, it certified the fact that the 91 reforms have put us on a different path altogether.
So Prime Minister Modi's BJP today is very, very powerful. It's consolidated its hold on the country. Do you think that perhaps he should undertake, a second phase of the economic reform?
Well, he's himself saying he's going to I don't think there's any doubt. The Prime Minister himself has said that in order to achieve these, we have to do a lot of reforms. And
you think he's doing that?
That's a separate question. It's a bit, let's put it this way. This is the first, he's talked about reform, perform, transform. Yeah. Over the next year, one will get a good sense.
Okay, so there's a related question to that from my colleague Aditi Tandon in Delhi. And she's asking, how sustainable is the modern day political trend of doles and freebies? And what does it mean for the economy's future, for India's future?
No, that to my mind, that is the key question. And in my view, whatever the press can do to inform the people that freebies by themselves only lead to something being squeezed out. And you should be quite clear what is being squeezed out. The simplest thing at the state level that gets squeezed out is delayed payment of salaries. Because budgets are not done on an actuarial basis of what is now due. They're just done on what is paid. So a school teacher's salary can be delayed by 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Secondly, they don't fill vacancies with regular posts, they fill them through contract. So you're getting a major deterioration in the things that the government should be doing because you're wasting resources. Now, one point is the state governments cannot borrow except with the approval of the central government. So if the central government retains that discipline, the state governments will sooner or later have to come to heel. There is an issue here whether the state government, whether these things get relaxed, there are disguised ways of getting around them. People have to be more aware, but it has to be the people. I mean, parliaments and state legislatures are only occasions where the opposition voices its concern.
Okay.
Opposition will usually want its freebies, no?
Okay, on this note, Mr. Ahluwalia, thank you so much for spending so much time with us here at the Tribune. We are, I think, India's oldest newspaper run by an Indian editor. There have been older newspapers like the Times of India and maybe a couple of others. And we're certainly a trust that has survived the century. We're 145 years old now. But thank you for your time, and thank you all for being part of the Tribune Newsroom. And thank you all, dear viewer, for your patience, for listening to us, for listening to Mr. Ahluwalia talk to us about the Indian economy and explaining all the questions that we've had here at the Tribune, not just here in Chandigarh, but also from my colleagues all across the region. Do follow us on all our social media handles across the digital space, as well as on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to tell us what you think about our stories and about our videos and of this particular episode. Thank you so much for watching.